The off-campus apartment was supposed to be a fresh start. Emily was a sophomore in college, eager for independence after a disastrous freshman year living with a nightmare roommate. The apartment wasn't perfect, peeling paint, drafty windows, but it was hers. A quiet one-bedroom on the edge of campus where she could focus on her studies and finally feel at peace. The first few weeks were uneventful. Emily settled into her routine, balancing late-night study sessions and her part-time job at the campus library. She loved the stillness of the apartment, the way the quiet wrapped around her like a warm blanket after chaotic days. But soon, little things started to nag at her. It began innocently enough, small disturbances she could explain away. One morning, she found the refrigerator door slightly ajar. She chalked it up to being in a rush the night before. Another day, her box of cereal was left on the counter, even though she was sure she'd put it away. "God, I need to sleep more," she muttered, shaking her head. Then there were the footsteps. Late at night, when the building was supposed to be silent, Emily would hear faint creaks above her ceiling or the soft thud of something moving nearby. At first, she convinced herself it was just the building settling or maybe a neighbor coming home late. But the footsteps didn't have the random rhythm of a building groaning under its own weight. They were deliberate, purposeful. She shrugged it off. Old buildings make weird noises, she told herself. The sense of unease grew when she started misplacing things, or so she thought. Her phone charger, which she always left on her nightstand, was suddenly on the kitchen counter. A hoodie she'd draped over a chair disappeared for 2 days before reappearing in her closet. The straw that broke her denial came one evening when she returned home from the library to find her bathroom door closed. She never left it closed. Her heart raced as she stood frozen in the doorway. Gripping her keys tightly, she pushed the door open with her foot, half expecting someone to leap out. But the bathroom was empty. Her reflection in the mirror looked pale, wide-eyed. She leaned against the sink, trying to calm the knot in her chest. "You're being ridiculous," she whispered. Still, she started double-checking the locks every night. Then came the discovery under her bed. It was a Saturday, and Emily had decided to deep clean her apartment, hoping to shake the growing unease that had settled over her like a cloud. As she moved her bed to vacuum underneath, she spotted something tucked against the far wall, an old, ratty blanket and an empty bag of chips. Her stomach turned. This wasn't hers. She stared at the items, her mind racing. Had they been there when she moved in? Surely she would have noticed. And the thought that someone might have been in her apartment, might still be in her apartment, made her skin crawl. She grabbed the blanket and bag, shoving them into a trash bag and throwing them out immediately. But that night, she couldn't sleep. The noises became harder to ignore. Every creak, every rustle made her flinch. The soft hum of her refrigerator sounded louder than ever, and the shadows in her room seemed to stretch and twist in unnatural ways. She started sleeping with a baseball bat under her bed, her phone charged and ready to call 911. One night, she woke to the faint sound of movement. It wasn't coming from above her ceiling this time. It was coming from inside her apartment. Her breath caught in her throat as she lay perfectly still, her ears straining. The sound grew louder, soft, careful footsteps crossing the living room. Emily's heart pounded so hard she thought it might explode. Clutching the bat, she slid out of bed and crept toward the door, her palms slick with sweat. She peeked through the crack, but the living room was dark. Summoning every ounce of courage, she flipped on the lights and swung the bat wildly. No one was there. The door was locked. The windows were latched. Her hands shook as she sank onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. The next morning, she called her landlord. "There's no way someone's in your apartment," he said dismissively. "You're probably just hearing the neighbors." But Emily wasn't convinced. She demanded the landlord check the crawlspace in her unit. Reluctantly, he agreed. The crawlspace was behind a small panel in her closet. The landlord pried it open, revealing a dark, narrow passage that smelled of mildew and dust. Emily held her breath as he shone a flashlight inside. At first, there was nothing, just dirt and cobwebs. Then the beam of light caught something, a small pile of belongings, a backpack, empty food wrappers, a pair of muddy shoes. Emily's stomach dropped. "Looks like someone's been squatting," the landlord muttered, pulling back. "I'll call the cops." The police came and searched the crawlspace, but found no one. They assured Emily that whoever had been there was likely gone for good, scared off by her discovery. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. That night, she locked every door and window, pushing her dresser against the closet door for good measure. Exhausted, she fell into a restless sleep. But in the dead of night, something woke her. A soft, almost imperceptible creak. She opened her eyes and froze. In the corner of her room, silhouetted by the faint glow of the streetlight outside, stood a man. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at her with hollow eyes. Emily's scream caught in her throat as she scrambled for her phone, but by the time she turned on the light, he was gone. The police arrived within minutes, but there was no sign of him. They searched the crawlspace again and found fresh footprints in the dirt. The man had been living there for months. They found journals filled with ramblings about Emily, what she ate, when she slept, how she looked when she laughed. One entry read, "She's so peaceful when she sleeps. I don't think she knows I'm watching." Emily moved out the next day, leaving behind everything but the essentials. The police never caught the man, and Emily never felt safe again. The end. Let me know your thoughts.